beautiful story in 1838, and it is still as alive today as it was then. Ligeia. I cannot for my soul remember how, when, or even precisely where I first became acquainted with the Lady Ligeia. Perhaps I cannot now bring these points to mind because in truth, the character of my beloved, her rare learning, her singular cast of beauty, and the thrilling and enthralling eloquence of her low musical language made their way into my heart by paces so steadily and stealthily progressive that they have been unnoticed and unknown. Yet I believe that I met her first and most frequently in some large, old, decaying city near the Rhine. Ligeia. It is by that sweet word alone that I bring before mine eyes in fancy the image of her who is no more, who was my friend and my betrothed, and she became the partner of my studies, and finally the wife of my bosom. And indeed, if ever the wan and misty-winged Astrofed of idolatrous Egypt presided, as they tell, over marriages ill-omened, then most surely she presided over mine. In stature, Ligeia was tall, somewhat slender, although her features were not of classical regularity and beauty of face. No maiden ever equaled her. The contour of the lofty and pale forehead was faultless, and the skin revealing the purest ivory. And then the raven black, the glossy, the luxuriant tresses, the delicate outlines of the nose tending to the aquiline, the sweet mouth, the magnificent turn of the short upper lip, the soft, voluptuous slumber of the lower, the dimples which sported, the teeth with a brilliancy shining startling in her most radiant of all smiles. And then the large eyes of Ligeia. The hue of those orbs was the most brilliant of black, and hung over them, hung lofty lashes of great length. Ah, the expression of the eyes of Ligeia. Those eyes, her large, luminous eyes. Of all the women whom I have ever known, she, the outwardly calm Ligeia, was the most violently a prey to the tumultuous vultures of passion. And of such passion I could form no estimate, save by the miraculous expansion of those eyes, by the most magical melody of her very low voice, and by the fierce energy of the wild words which she frequently uttered. I have spoken of the learning of Ligeia. It was immense. I was sufficiently aware of her infinite supremacy to resign myself with a childlike obedience to her guidance through the chaotic world of metaphysical investigation at which I was most busily occupied during the earlier years of our marriage. How poignant then must be the grief with which, after some years, I beheld my well-grounded expectations take wings to themselves and fly away. Now the radiant luster of her eyes shone less and less. Frequently upon the pages over which I pored, Ligeia grew ill. The wild eyes blazed with a too glorious effulgence. I saw that she must die. There had been much in her nature to impress me with the belief that to her, death would come without its terrors, but not so. Words are important to convey the fierceness of the resistance with which you wrestled with the shadow. That she loved me I could not have doubted, but in death only was I fully impressed with the strength of her affection. For long hours, holding my hand, would she pour out For long hours, detaining my hand, would she pour out before me the overflowing of a heart, whose more than passionate devotion amounted to idolatry. In Ligeia's more than womanly abandon to her love, I at length recognized the principle of her longing for life, the eager vehemence of a desire for life, but for life, that I have no power to portray, an utterance capable of expressing. At high noon of the night on which she departed, beckoning me peremptorily to her side, "Oh God!" half shrieked Ligeia, leaping to her feet and extending her arms aloft. "Oh God, who knoweth the mysteries of the will with all its vigor, man need not yield him to the angels, nor unto death utterly, save only through the weakness of his feeble will." And now, as if exhausted with emotion, she suffered her right arms to fall and returned solemnly to her bed of death. And as she breathed her last sighs, there came mingled with them a low murmur from her lips. I bent to them my ear and distinguished again the concluding words of the passage in Granville. "Man need not yield him to the angels, nor unto death utterly, save only through the weakness of his feeble will." She died, and I, crushed to the very dust with sorrow, could no longer endure the lonely desolation of my dwelling in the decaying city by the Rhine. After a few months, therefore, of weary and aimless wanderings, I purchased and put in some repair an abbey in one of the wildest and least frequently portions of England. Yet although the external abbey, with its verdant decay hanging about it, suffered but little alteration, I gave way with a childlike perversity to a display of more than royal magnificence within. I had become a bound slave in the trammels of opium. My labors had taken the coloring from my dreams. Let me speak only of the bridal chamber, ever accursed, where in a moment of mental alienation I led from the altar as my bride the successor to the unforgotten Ligeia, the fair-haired and blue-eyed Lady Rowena Trevelyan of Tremay. The bridal chamber lay in a high turret of the abbey. The ceiling of a gloomy-looking oak was excessively lofty and elaborately fretted with grotesque specimens of a semi-Gothical device. From it depended by a single chain of gold with long links a long censer of the same metal, with many perforations out of which writhed a continual succession of parti-colored fires. There was, too, the bridal couch of an Indian model, low and sculpted of solid ebony, with a pall-like canopy above. The lofty walls, gigantic in height, were hung in vast folds with a heavy and massive tapestry of the richest cloth of gold, spotted over with arabesque figures and patterns of jetty black. In a bridal chamber such as this, I passed with the Lady Tremaine the unhallowed hours of the first month of our marriage. That my wife dreaded the fierce moodiness of my temper, that she shunned me and loved me but little I could not help perceiving. I loathed her with a hatred belonging more to a demon than to man. My memory flew back, with what intensity of regret, to Ligeia, the beloved, the august, the beautiful, the entombed. About the commencement of the second month of our marriage, the Lady Rowena was attacked with a sudden illness, from which her recovery was slow. In her perturbed state of half slumber, she spoke of sounds and of motions in and about the chamber of the turret. Her illnesses became more alarming in character. She spoke again and more frequently of the sounds, of the unusual motions behind the tapestries. One night she partly arose and spoke in an earnest tone, whisper of sounds she then heard, but which I could not hear, of motions which she then saw, but which I could not, a deadly pallor overspreading her face. She appeared to be fainting, and I remember that there was deposited in the chamber a light wine which had been ordered by her physicians and hastened across the chamber to procure it. Having found the wine, I recrossed the chamber and poured out a goblet which I held to the lips of the fainting lady. She had partly recovered, however, and took the vessel in herself. It was then that I became distinctly aware of a gentle footfall upon the carpet and near the couch. And in a second after, as Rowena was in the act of raising the wine to her lips, I saw, or may have dreamed that I saw, fall within the goblet, as if from some invisible spring in the atmosphere of the room, 3 or 4 drops of a brilliant ruby-colored fluid. She swallowed the wine unhesitatingly, and I forbore to speak of her of the circumstance which, after all, I considered had been but a suggestion of vivid imagination, rendered morbidly active by the terror of the lady and the excitement of an immoderate dose of opium. Yet immediately subsequent to the fall of the lofty drops, a rapid change for the worse took place in the disorder of my wife, so that on the 3rd subsequent night, the hands of her menials prepared her for the tomb. And on the 4th, I sat alone with her shrouded body in that fantastic chamber that had received her as my bride. There rushed upon me 1,000 memories of Ligeia, and then came back upon my heart the whole of that unutterable woe with which I had regarded her thus enshrouded. And with a bosom full of bitter thoughts of the one only and supremely beloved, I remained gazing upon the body of Rowena. It might have been midnight, or perhaps later, when a sob, low, gentle, but very distinct, startled me from my reverie. I felt it came from the bed of death. I listened in an agony of superstitious horror. At length, it became evident that a slight and barely noticeable tinge of colour had flushed up within the cheeks and along the small veins of the eyelids. I felt my heart cease to beat. My limbs grew rigid when I sat. I could no longer doubt that we had been precipitate in our preparations, that Rowena still lived. In a short period, it was certain, however, that a relapse had taken place. The colour disappeared from both eyelid and cheek, leaving a wanness even more than that of marble. I sat back with a shudder upon the couch from which I had been so startlingly aroused, and again gave myself up to passionate waking visions of Ligeia. An hour thus elapsed when, could it be possible? I was the second time aware of some vague sound issuing from the region of the bed. I listened in an extremity of horror. It was a sigh. Rushing to the corpse, I saw a tremor upon the lips. There was now a partial glow upon the forehead and upon the cheek and throat. A perceptible warmth pervaded the whole frame. There was even a slight pulsation of the heart. The lady lived, and with redoubled ardor I betook myself to the task of restoration. But in vain. Suddenly the colour had fled, the pulsation ceased, the lips resumed the expression of the dead, and the whole body took upon itself an icy chilliness, the intense rigidity of what that had been for many days a tenant of the tomb. And again I sunk into visions of Ligeia, and again, marvel that I shudder as I write. Again there reached from my ears a low sob from the ebony bed. Why shall I pause to relate how, time after time, until the period of grey dawn, the hideous drama was repeated, how each relapse was only into a sterner and apparently more irredeemable death, how each agony wore the aspect of a struggle with some invisible foe, and how each struggle was succeeded by I know not what wild change in the personal appearance of the corpse. Oh, let me hurry to a conclusion. The greater part of that fearful night had worn away, and she who had been dead once again stirred, and now more vigorously than before. I remained sitting rigidly upon this ottoman, a helpless prey to a whirl of violent emotions, of which extreme awe was perhaps the least terrible. The hues of life flushed up with unwonted energy into the countenance. The limbs relaxed, and save that the eyelids were yet pressed too heavily together, and that the bandages and draperies of the grave still imparted their charnel character to the figure, I might have dreamed that Rowena had indeed shaken off utterly the fetters of death. I could doubt it no longer when, arising from the bed, tottering with feeble steps, and with the manner of one bewildered in a dream, the thing that was enshrouded advanced boldly and palpably into the middle of the apartment. I stirred not, but gazed upon the apparition. There was a mad disorder in my thoughts. Could it indeed be the living Rowena who confronted me? Could it indeed be Rowena at all? The fair-haired, the blue-eyed Lady Rowena Trevanion of Tremaine? Why should I doubt it? The bandage lay heavily upon the mouth, but then might it not be the mouth of the breathing Lady of Tremaine? And the cheeks, there were the roses as in the noon of youth, and the chin with its dimples, might they not be hers? But had she not grown taller in her malady? What inexpressible madness seized me with that thought? One bound and I had reached her heel. Shrinking from my touch, she let fall from her head, unloosened, the ghastly cerements which had contained it, and there streamed forth into the rushing atmosphere of the chamber huge masses of long and dishevelled hair. It was darker than the raven wings of midnight. And now slowly opened the eyes of the figure which stood before me. Here then at last I shrieked aloud. Can I never be mistaken? Those are the full and the black and the wild eyes of my lost love, of the lady, the Lady Ligeia. He wrote the words, and he found the words. And what is so wonderful about Edgar Allan Poe is that the words are so vivid, and he expresses what is going on inside these characters that he has created. But as you can see, the Tomb of Ligeia, the film, is not this story exactly, but it was inspired by this wonderful story. And there's more to the story too. So I actually made a recording of the story, which I would be very happy, it's at my table if you want to come and hear the whole thing, because it's longer. And Vincent Price also did a recording of this story. So both of us tell the tale. And I think you can reach it on YouTube. I would be very interested to hear how you felt about what strikes me at a time like this, of the days that we are having, are full of passion. There is so much passion being felt. Your love of these films, of us who make the films and work on the films, and we are expressing these feelings to each other. And you know, in ordinary life, we've got out of the habit of doing that as a society. And Romeo and Juliet wouldn't have the balcony scene, they'd be texting emojis to each other. But what I feel that we need to carry these feelings into real life, because we are losing language. People are not talking to each other from a full heart. We get nervous about that sometimes, because if you really open yourself to somebody, then it might make you vulnerable. But it also might be the greatest blessing that you and they ever share. So I know that the feelings that we take away from a weekend like this, I hope that it can make a difference when we go back home. So I'd be very happy if we can talk together a bit about things. Don't all speak at once. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
I love your speaking voice. It was just a beautiful story. I loved it. I would like to hear all of the Poe books read by you, honestly, on a podcast. I think it would be a wonderful thing to hear you do that.
Well, I would love to do that. Yes.
Yesterday you mentioned that the movie versus the story, that being in love or being mesmerized by the character versus being opium.
Yes. So as you can tell from the story, he became an addict when he lost Ligeia. He became an opium addict, and this happens in life. You know, that's how people become drug addicts, alcoholics, because it's too painful. You have an addiction to dull the pain. And go into another world. But as you can see in this story, the two, Ligeia and he was called Virgin in the film, but the narrator of the story, telling the story, it is such an intensely personal relationship. It's just the two of them, and I think that they felt that for a whole movie story, this is not enough. And as you see, Rowena is just a cipher here. He marries her because, well, why not? But it was no love lost. And as I said yesterday, you know, I mean, in the film, with Vincent Price, why on earth would Robert Towne say he was too old? I mean, Vincent at 53, with that black hair and that voice, my God, I mean, you're definitely falling in love with that. So they needed to broaden this. But what I love about the film is that it is two love stories. Ligeia loves him and wanted to keep hold of him through hypnotizing him, putting a spell on him. And so her love is passionate, but possessive. Rowena, as we see in the story, and I was very moved by this, is that once she realizes what is happening, that he is under this spell, that Ligeia is upstairs there and makes him visit her at night, which is why he won't come to me, to Rowena. Once Rowena realizes how trapped he is, and because she loves him so much, she then impersonates Ligeia in order to release him from the spell. So her love is redemptive. Two different kinds of love. And I think that is a very moving story to be told. I think that what Roger Corman and Robert Towne, they gave Vincent and I wonderful roles to play. I had two wonderful roles to play.
Yes.
And so it's still in the spirit of this, because it is people with huge feelings about each other. And they brought in the black cat, which is also a Poe person. Yes. Yes.
Your reading obviously was exceptionally well done. It touched everybody emotionally. It was brilliant and magnificent. But what was equally as good, if not better, and I hope people caught what you said. After the presentation, you discussed thinking about society and the losing of interpersonal communication. I thought that was not only profound, but prophetic. What's gonna happen today and tomorrow, God only knows. AI, among other things. There's many good things, and there's implications people can't even understand or don't even realize. So you made a very significant statement that was very true, and only time will tell what tomorrow will bring.
Yes, indeed. And I'm thankful that in my profession I was brought up in close company with William Shakespeare, whose understanding of life and expression of life has sustained me, and Edgar Allan Poe. These writers who put feelings into words and help me keep my own feelings open. And also the thing is that as an actor, I have to imagine what it feels like to be somebody else. I am there as a vehicle for other people to be revealed through me. And this ability to imagine what it feels like to be somebody else is what we need more than anything in our society and in our world today.
Vulnerability, and that's another interesting aspect that a lot of people are afraid to delve into, or a lot of people are afraid to be vulnerable. Everybody wants to be the biggest, the best, the fastest, the loudest, the this or that. Vulnerability can be a very good thing in many, many ways. You also made a very profound comment about, gee, you can open yourself up, and maybe you could be wounded, but it also could be the best thing that ever happened to you. That was a significant statement also.
Well, I think that to dare to be emotionally vulnerable in order to acknowledge what is happening in yourself, because we suppress that too, you know, and encourage each other, you know, to open up. What do you really think? And if you love somebody, just tell them. And if you're interested, even if, even talking to a stranger, if you see, I love that nail polish you're wearing, what an extraordinary outfit, or just complimenting each other on what, because, goodness me, we're all more aware of what we can't do and don't do, rather than, actually, I think that there are two kinds of people in the world. Those who think too much of themselves, and those who don't think nearly enough of themselves. And one needs to try and find, find the balance then. And encourage each other to find the balance. If somebody needs encouragement, give it. And if somebody's just showing off, say, I'm bored by that now. Yes.
I want to make a comment about what she said. I agree with her 100%. That it'd be great to hear all of those stories, hear you do all of those stories. I think there would be a good market for that, because I think these days people have more time to listen to their CDs in their cars than they have time to sit and read the story.
Yeah, yes.
I think we have a very good market for that, and a passion.
Well, the thing is that technology is moving so fast. I mean, I don't know if you have the equipment to play a CD. Do you? Because, maybe because I put this then on a streaming service, and they sort of broke it up and blah, blah. It never got out there properly. But to find, I mean, yes, I would love to do that, as you suggested. But I would need to find an imaginative and creative producer, who could find the best way we can do it to get it to people in ways where they can play it. What do you play in your car? What kind of?
That's a good
You could put this in your car.
Yeah, sure.
Well, good. I hope lots of people still sell them. Yeah.
Sears radio is out now, satellites and we're gonna do away with the machinery like that.
Yes. Everything these days technically is changing so quickly. I mean, I still use email, for God's sake. Everybody else texts. I don't live on my phone. My acting students, I have to keep saying to them, don't look down. If you're talking, and even if you're talking to yourself, you look forward. But they're all looking down because they're all looking at their phone all the time. Everybody's neck is bent like that. Anyway, yes.
I'm wondering, as a professional, what are some of the particular challenges and joys of reading Edgar Allan Poe?
The language.
And maybe Ligeia in particular.
Yes, the language, and trying to enter into the circumstance, I mean, I'm out of practice in that I do this every so often, on an occasion like this. But I think that his imagination is wild. Whoa. He goes to places that most people wouldn't even know about. And he combines, I was talking with somebody and they were talking about, they'd been talking to Vincent, the master who said, somebody said, what do you think of horror films? I think that in the past, like and Vincent said, horror films are negligent. The thing about Poe and the Great is that they are terror films. You are terrified by what happens, which is a whole different passionate experience. Horror implies, something being horrible, but also in modern horror films now, they often just don't use actors anymore. We are just sort of then mechanized. In these stories, the tale is told through us, through people, through the stories of what happens to people. And I think that then is engaging in, even in Damien, Omen 2, which I also did, there are horrible things happening, but it is still told through the people that they happen to. But now, where there's a lot of green screen, and it's all done, the horror is done by effects. They don't allow us to be effective. They have their own mechanized effects and green screen and whoa, all that. The technicians have taken over there too. I feel in some of the more modern. And I think that when real people are involved in extraordinary circumstances, and the way our world is now, what is happening with climate change, that is terrifying. Because also, we all know about it now. Everybody, ordinary people who are getting burned in fires and floods, and the climate is all over the place. But we're not being taken care of by the powers that be. They're not urgently enough. So I think that being aware of, there are certain aspects of our world now, which is a horror film, a terror film. But again, when we talk about that, and see if you can. A lot of persuasion is going to have to happen to make action happen. Anyway, let's not get into politics. No, politics. No. We all hope for the best, yes.
I think the thing you said about modern horror is really true. I mean, I'm just doing this for context for people who don't know me. I'm only 18, I'm in college, and I just got out of high school this past year.
Yes.
And there's like so much in the new horror industry that like, it feels like it's always the same thing. There's nothing unique anymore for the most part. I'm not familiar with Blumhouse, but they're a production company. They're really famous for a film called Megan, and I've heard some people say, oh, it's just Chucky, but as a robot doll instead of a regular doll.
Mhm.
And I feel like because we keep moving forward, it just makes less creativity in movies because nobody's wanting to do anything original anymore.
Well, I think the whole Marvel series, you know, one is looking to the heroes, you know, all the action figures, the different personalities, and one's, the stories become a bit formulaic, but there are all these interesting, then the new Marvel person is to the fore. I mean, many people are, and especially young people, very entertained by that. And so, I don't know, one has to choose who one's heroes are going to be. But as a young person, you know, with the world that you're inheriting for your whole life, be eloquent about it. Talk about it among yourselves. And you need to have all the eloquence possible in order to persuade people to do the right thing in the end. I wish you luck. Yes, yes.
I mean, that's a lot of weight, but I'll try.
And if you try with your whole heart and soul, the whole of your being, if you try like that, you'll succeed.
Thank
You will. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation today, and I appreciate so much the language that you shared from Poe, the reading, the interpretation of it, and the fact that it gives us all this chance to be in a place where there's a person-to-person communication, telling of stories. The children love for you to read stories to them.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us here understand the value of that childlike experience.
Yes.
And it's so important to read is important, but to read to each other.
Yes.
And to listen to each other. And
Yes.
so I appreciated the opportunity to be in that listening human connection.
Yes, me too. And yesterday and today, all day, everything that is happening, all among us and to us and through us, is good. It's good. It's good. We are going to, all of us will be the better for this weekend. We will. Yes. Yes.
Just the camera, sorry. But also, with horror nowadays, I've noticed it's gone from atmosphere and actual plot to jump scares and loud noises, and like everything is computer generated. So that's why all of us prefer the older films to newer ones.
Yes.
Yes.
If I can add what this young man is saying, I think the implied horror is a lot better for you than something thrown at you.
Yes.
What the mind can create is much more horrific than what you can visually see. And that's what's missing in today's cinema in general.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Just a personal comment. The first time I watched Ligeia many years ago, my biggest shock came during the credits when I realized you played both Ligeia and Edwina. That was the same person. And I realized later, that's what excellence looks like. Now I see it. I've seen good, I've seen very good, but my gosh, that was excellent. So I thought, thank you for the explanation.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw the film for the first time yesterday. I had the same shock. I thought I was sophisticated. No, you are.
What you've done for us today was construct a narrative. And you did it with every tool that you have in your experiential toolbox. You did it with your facial expressions. You did it by modulating your voice. You did it with gestures. You did it with body language. And apropos to the conversation we've been having, what we are losing when we communicate emails, instant messages, and texts is we are no longer using our full
Yes.
toolboxes.
Yes.
You select an emotion and you send it to whoever your message is.
Yes.
And that emoji is going to perfectly express what's going on in your mind and your spirit at that particular time. Now, we still have the ability
Yes.
to interpret and understand and emotionally respond to what we're seeing electronically.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, going back to the very beginning, finding our voice as beings as opposed to animals, or finding our voice and then finding words or ways to indicate this and that, to communicate with each other, was what differentiated us and gave us our brains to begin with. That's what started it. And I do believe that it is our most precious thing that we gave ourselves at the very beginning. So I don't want us to lose it. Because I think that that is being able to communicate, to be able to be, you know, even if you're not going to, you know, be able to write a story like this, or whatever you do in life, you can be a creative person. You can make something happen in life, or whatever's happening around you, or the people around you, or the organization you're with, or whatever. You can create something better than you found it. And that is a wonderful aim. And that is open to everybody and anybody. Because, you know, we have the ability to have a new thought, have a wonderful, and then have an insight, and then have an inspiration about something. I think that, you know, we all have that inside us. Some, you know, to a greater degree, because they happen to, for whatever reason, circumstance or whatever, but that doesn't mean to say it can't happen anywhere or to anybody. I really believe that. Yes.
And you know, he makes a really good point. If we don't use it, we're going to lose it.
Yes.
Use these tools.
Absolutely.
We're going to lose it. And
That's.
Now, I'm wondering how we're going to behave with them. We still have these tools.
We all know that young people in particular respond dramatically and emotionally to what they're reading in their emails and instant messages. We all have the ability to interpret and project back on messages that we get. But we're only getting them to a limited number of channels.
Right. If it's imperfect, it's going to become eventually theirs.
Now, you know, we
Yes, I'm terrified that we're losing the ability to realize that is our gift as humans, really. And you know, the way children find language, and then they're able to say who they are and what they want and how they feel. We lose that. Anyway, yes.
You ever been to a store and you give someone currency and they can't make change?
Yes. Well, I know. Some of my acting students, I say, you know, they say, what does this word mean? I say, well, look it up in the dictionary. They don't know the alphabet. They don't know where to look in the dictionary. Oh dear, this is tragic.
Yes.
Because these basic things, and you know, again, no times table or anything like that. It's,
We don't hold them accountable.
yeah, right. And you know, you can Google it instead of knowing it. Oh, let's not be depressed by all that. Let's do something about it.
Well, we gotta teach them, like you taught us how to read that Poe story. We should take that knowledge now and read it.
Yes, and also, when you, it's very often, if you're reading somebody like Poe, read it aloud to yourself. Read it aloud to yourself, because then you will savor and taste the words. And if you're reading Shakespeare, same thing. Shakespeare should be read aloud. And it's so actable because it was written by an actor, one of us.
You have plenty of copies.
I have quite a few copies, yes. So I would be very happy to see you at my table, and I've been so happy to meet you and be here. I said that before because something like this is very special. I think we all come here with, we need these kind of gatherings. So I'm glad we're enjoying it this particular weekend. So.
Your footstool, my cushion.
Elizabeth Shepard of Monster Bash. Make sure to visit her table. Check out her CD. Hey, coming up in a few minutes, we'll have that Lon Chaney's Frankenstein.